Kia ora ana, maloa lei, talofa lawa, salam alaikum, buenos dias. Great to have you here. My name's Greg Ward, and of course, this is Moments That Matter. And we're coming to you in a slightly different way this morning. We've had a few little issues, and apologies for the lateness of actually rolling on here at the moment. What I'd really like to do is to invite our guest speaker to join us here in a very short moment. And they will be attending in just a little moment, I think. So what we'll get our guest to do when they arrive is have a chat with us, and we'll get ourselves underway. Great to have you here, Ami. How are you doing?
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good. Thank you. Thank you, Greg. Aloha.
Excellent. Talofa. It's just stunningly good to have you here on screen. Of course, some of the challenges that we have with technology, and look, you and I are not dissimilar in terms of the challenges that we've got with technology, right? And there's going to be so many people out there who are in the same boat, who have these very interesting challenges around the place. Just one of those things. And of course, what we do is we work our way through it. So firstly, a very warm welcome to you. Great to have you here with us. It's been certainly been a bit of a week. I've been out running around the business events industry, and we're very grateful, of course, that potentially we might be able to have a bit of a travel bubble with Australia. And that would be a really good thing to do, and hopefully into the Pacific as well, if we can sort of get that working on. But firstly, tell me a little bit about you. Tell me a little bit about your week. How's your week been?
Well, it's been busy, very busy. I do a lot of things. It's just because I work from home, and I've been down to a lot of meetings, but also these Zoom activities that's been going up in the last few months. I think it's very, very important that we have to keep up, as you said, with the technology. And I think I've been very busy this week. Yes, the whole week has been very busy.
Now, this year, over the course of 2020, has been a really challenging year for a lot of people. And I imagine, certainly for me, it has. And I imagine for yourself and family as well. So what we're going to do is we're just going to discuss what has been going on for us in 2020. And let's go right back to the start of this year, right? So February, March this year, we're looking around the world and we're seeing that there is this potential pandemic happening. What were your thoughts way back in February and March of this year?
Well, thank you, Greg. I think I just want to talk from my own experience. You know, I've been running this business from home for the last couple of years. And this year I saw a big vision. I saw, I was running from home. And this year, around June, I was looking at getting into an office or into our own warehouse, and everything was put in plan, and unfortunately, when in March, when the pandemic happened, COVID-19 happened, everything come to a stop. And it was one of those moments, either whether it's going to lift you up or whether you're going to go down. It really depends on who you've been talking to and what sort of people that you mix and mingle with. So it's one of those things. Now I've said to my wife, look, we've got to hold on to this. So it's been affected. Yes, us as people and business, small business, it's a challenge. It's a challenge, but we have to hold on to this until we see, maybe in the next few months, and see what happens in the next few months. But also around the community is being affected as well. A lot of people in our community, because I do a lot of work for the community, the jobs are going down, and people are asking for jobs because I run a recruitment agency, and people asking for jobs, and people, young people, that's sad to say, young people are now pulling out from school and finding jobs because their parents either more mature, age and all that stuff, or lack of, because they've been working for so long in one job. Now the young people are pulling out from school and looking for jobs, just to save their income. So it is a bit challenging in our community too.
It certainly is challenging. And where are you? You're in Auckland,
yes,
correct?
Yes, I'm based in Auckland.
And where in Auckland do you reside?
Onehunga. Onehunga.
Onehunga. Have you always lived in Onehunga?
No. We when we first moved from Samoa, we lived in Wellington. So we're from Wellington. In the last 20 or so years, we lived in Wellington, and about 8 or so years, we moved up here because my job got transferred up here.
I see. So you are known as the Tony Robbins of the Pacific, which is a set of big shoes to fill, I have to say. So how did you come about that name?
I don't know. I didn't come up with that name, Greg. When I first became a public speaker, and I was learning, all the skills and then Tangata Pacifica, Pacifica TV1 came and filmed and recorded my story. And that's what they said. When I first saw that on TV, the first thing they said, the Tony Robbins of the Pacific. And I thought, hey, I like that. Yes, it is a big shoes to fill. I don't think I will ever come up. But again, with Tony Robbins, I bought a lot of things from Tony Robbins. In the last 15, 20 years, I bought a lot of materials. I bought a lot of DVDs before, the YouTube and Facebook, everything. But Tony Robbins is something that I look up to. It's someone that I look up to.
Absolutely. I mean, and he has a very good mindset message. I mean, it's very much about self-empowerment and being the absolute best that you can. And to be fair, I also have purchased stuff from Tony Robbins, sort of 10 or 15 years ago. And everything that we do is a journey, right? And so we're learning every step of the way about ourselves and about the people around us. And what I was really interested in was your journey and the experience you've had that has brought you to this point where you've felt driven to be a speaker, that you've driven to actually get on stages, and through that process being able to support people and help people. And I'm really keen to know more about that, but I'm really keen to know about the why as well. Why are you driven? Why is this something that's important to you? And why is it something that you feel you really need to be doing for your community and for New Zealand and the world?
Yes, thank you, Greg. I think I'm one of those people. Ever since as I was a young boy, I tend to ask myself that same question: why do I have to do this? Well, every time I do something, I always see the purpose of what I'm doing. I think, to me personally, I grew up in a life where I had the chance to experience life outside of the boundaries, kind of thing. Yeah. Sometimes the parents set those boundaries, but I think I was those kid that I was outside of the boundaries all the time. So I always see myself challenging. So a lot of challenges that I went through in my life, that's when I realized the reason why I go through this, so that I can, get the skills, get the learning experience, so that I may be able to help other people. So my big why is to help our Pacific people that are going through a lot of challenges, going through a lot of health issues, whatever issues that and that's my big why, is to help others make changes in their lives.
So what was it like? I'm going to talk about the elements of immigration, coming into New Zealand, because we're in terms of the community that we're serving here, the ethnic community in Waitakere and migrant community in Waitakere and further afield, we've all come from somewhere, and I'm certainly in the same boat. I immigrated from England, which is, of course, a lot different because the language is the same, the culture is pretty much the same. There's not a lot of real challenge around there. But of course, not my experience is not everybody else's experience. And I'm loving these conversations because we find out so much about each other. So I'd love to know, what was the driver? What was the driver to come here to New Zealand? Oh, I've just had a question come in asking your name again. So our speaker's name is Ami Pepe, which is Amippepe. So back to the question. What was the driver? Why come to New Zealand? What was the overall process?
Well, I think there's one reason the parents always look at their kids. What is the best for the children? What is the best? What is the future for these? You know, there's 8 of us. So, you know, me and my brothers and sisters. There's 8 of us. 6 were born in Samoa, and 2 were born here in New Zealand. So the 6, you know, starting to grow up as teenagers, and my parents says, "Hey, what can we do to give the benefit, to give some sort of education to my kids?" Because even my parents were struggling big time. You know, back home in Samoa, my father was working, my mom was in and out of, you know, so many other jobs just to raise 6 kids. So I think that was the question that they had in their mind. What's the best for my kids and, you know, for their kids? And that's why we moved here in the first place, just to give us that opportunity, better education, better jobs. And I'm glad that my parents make that decision, because I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing now if we still lived back in the island.
I'm with you. My parents made the decision to come here to New Zealand. You know, I was 3 years old at the time. I didn't really have much of a choice. However, it wasn't until I was in my early 20s, and I'd returned to England, and I spent a few years living in England and Europe, that I began to realize what a decision it actually had been. It was monumental. You're moving away from all of your base. You're moving away from all of your relatives, your close people, and moving to another country. And ultimately, as immigrants, we have to make it, right?
It's a big sacrifice if you really think about it. It is.
It certainly is. So in those early days, coming to New Zealand, what was it like? When did you arrive? You would have in the late 70s, 80s?
Yes, no, 80s. I think 1986.
Yep.
Arrived, yep, in New Zealand.
What was the cultural elements like here in New Zealand? Because we, you know, as much as we consider that we're a pretty diverse nation and we're culturally responsible and integrated, we're not really. I mean, there's a lot of challenges. But what was it like in 1986 for you?
I think it was, you know, I think the first thing I was looking at English, you know, English is my second language. When I first arrived in New Zealand, English was so terrible back then, to tell you the truth. I had to, I had to go back and learn English again. You know, as a 20-year-old, I was 20 when I first came to New Zealand. So I had to go back and learn English. I had to go back and learn, you know, I think I first got my job, a job that I worked for. It was a factory job. And that was my first job in New Zealand. It was a problem. It was a challenge. I thought I was gonna do that job for the rest of my life. But again, my mom, you know, my parents kept on reminding me the reason why we came here. So coming into a different country, different environment, different lifestyle. So we have to make some changes into ourselves. We have to make some changes to our lifestyle just to meet what we have to go through here in New Zealand. We cannot, what I decided to do, even my whole family, we cannot try to live the same way as we lived before in the island coming here. We have to make some sort of adjustment. We have to make some changes, or otherwise we won't be able to cope.
What was the biggest change as a 20-year-old? I mean, it's a different world, right? Because it is certainly through those late teenage years. It's generally you think it's about yourself a lot, yeah. Right? And as much as we have a family culture and we want to support, you're still wanting to be very autonomous and being who we are. So how hard was that in terms of yourself and your siblings, having to adjust at that age to this country?
Yes, it was tough. It was tough. As you said, being a 20-year-old boy, I thought I was the man. But then I realized the purpose that we came here in the beginning is just to give us that, better opportunity, better schooling and better jobs. So it's a big, I think the challenging moment is trying to change the way I lived before I moved here. As a 20-year-old boy, you probably have all the ideas that you wanted to achieve, and then trying to change that mindset. Hey, I'm in a different country now. It's a different, environment, different way to do things. I have to change the mindset. I think that's the challenge that I had to go through when I first arrived in New Zealand. Lack of communication. I was shy. I was always behind the scene. I was always kind of the back of the room kind of thing. So that's a sort of thing that's a sort of a attitude and behavior that I have to change, or otherwise I would not be able to meet the need of being here in the beginning, from the beginning.
Yeah, I mean that's a really good observation. Really, is, you know, working out how to operate in a new environment, and you're trying to do it with a set of skills that are perfect for your previous environment. So, how did you go about finding the tools to learn at that age?
I think I saw the opportunity straight away. It's not something that came in 24 hours, but the more I looked, the more I studied, the more I observed, the more I experienced. That's when I said, hey, I need to do this. I have to lift myself up, or otherwise, you know, I won't be able to do what I want to do in life. So I had to make those changes. You know, it's I hear people doing this course, I go and do that program. You know, I go and learn this. I go and so I was out there learning that, you know, from different groups, from different different places. I was getting that. You know, I kept on telling myself. I think that's one of the things that I'm going to talk today is that self-talk. I kept on telling myself something that I learned as a young boy. I kept on telling myself things to do. So then the next day I go out there and do it. If you know what I mean. So self-talk is very important to me.
I completely agree with you, and that's one of the challenges we have is that not all of the self-talk that we have is positive, and that's one of the biggest challenges that we have as humans. You know, being the fact that we're still animals, really. You know, we're part of the animal kingdom. Yeah. But what we'll do, I mean, I'd love to. I'm certainly looking forward to hearing you speak, and I know that we have a presentation that we would love to be able to do. So we're going to attempt to get that presentation shared. So let's have a go at that and we'll get you underway. So if we can get you to share the presentation, what I'll do is I'll get some allowing down here. Okay, so I've given you sharing there. So I believe you should have your PowerPoint already there. This is one of those challenges there for our audience, as always, from a technology standpoint. It's really about, we've had to learn and adapt so much over the course of this year, and that has had its challenges all around, I have to say. But firstly, before, as we're carrying on, I would like to say a massive thank you to the Waitakere Ethnic Board for having the initiative to put this on. Also, a massive thanks to Foundation North, our sponsors for this event, Aotearoa Academy, and all of our guest speakers who've been joining us here. Ami, how are we doing?
Yep, pretty good, pretty good. I tried my best. Unfortunately, it's not coming up, so I can do it without a presentation. I mean, without a PowerPoint, if that's okay.
Yeah, look, absolutely. We'll fire away. So imagery's all well and good, but ultimately, it's your experience we want to hear. We want to know about you. We want to know about your mindset and your focus and the way that you can share for us out here in these communities. Because one of the keys, but just before you begin, one of the keys of this particular series is really about exploring resilience, vulnerability, kindness, what we'd call the soft skills, but realistically, they're not the soft skills. They're really the skills that we should have initially, right? They're the ones that should be the things that are the baseline, not necessarily the job training or the occupational or so forth, but about how can we roll through the world. And it's situations like this pandemic that test us. And that's why we're here, to be able to discuss how we've all had these different responses, but taking the best from each of these responses and helping them, helping all of our communities. So, Ami Pepe, I look forward very much indeed to hearing you speak right now.
Thank you, Greg. I think as a young boy growing up in Samoa, at school, I got expelled from school many times. I got suspended from school many times. It's just not because I was out there bullying other kids at school. It's not because I was out there fighting at school. It's not because I was out there eating other kids' lunch. It's just because I talk too much. Literally talk too much. I don't know why, but I thought it was a problem. Every time I speak, the teacher would say something, I speak up. The teacher will do something, I speak up. And most of the time when I speak up without a warning. Sometimes I make people laugh. Sometimes I make people angry at me because of what I say. But for some reason, the teacher saw that it was a problem. So I get sent home, I get suspended, I go home. And every time I go home, my mother would say, son, come here, sit down, talk to me. And that's what I like. That's what I want to talk to you today. That's the title of my little presentation. Son, talk to me. As a mother, she always see, every time a mother will see a concern with the kids and with their children, what do the mother say? What do? They will sit down with you. They will sit down with the kids and say, hey, look, I can see that you have a problem. Talk to me. So whenever I talk to my mother, I say, Mom, look, I got suspended from school because I talk too much. The teacher said I have a problem. The teacher said I always, I should think before I speak. Very inspiring what my mother said. My mother said to me, son, you don't have a problem. Son, you have a gift. I didn't know then as a young boy, I was only 8 or 9 years old at the time. I didn't know what a gift. I thought a gift is something that you get when you have a birthday or, when you achieve something. And my mother said, no, you have a gift. So every time I get suspended or I get sent home, that's what my mother said, son, talk to me. So every time I talk to my mother, that's when some sort of, new connections in my brain starting to flash in my brain saying, hey. So every time I talk to my mother will always encourage me, son, speak up. The more you speak, the more you speak. And that's probably why I got sent home all the time. That's probably why I got expelled and suspended from school all the time, because of my mother's counsel. So when I moved to New Zealand as a 20-year-old boy, that's when I realized what my mother was doing to me, was giving me that encouragement, was giving me that feedback, was telling me, her determination for me to keep on speaking up, and that built up my confidence. Even though I was struggling finding a job, my first job in New Zealand was to work in a factory. And I thought I was going to stay there for the rest of my life. Until one day I came home after one hard work. If I look at that job that I was doing at the factory job in Wellington, here in Wellington, the things that I was doing in Samoa, the plantation and every job that I was doing in Samoa, it was a lot easier than the job that I had in New Zealand. So there was one time I think I worked there for 1.5 years. One day I came home and my mother saw me, a bit of tears in my eyes because I couldn't handle the job. My mother said to me, son, talk to me. I said, Mom, I don't think I can handle this job. And then she said to me, son, remember that's why we came to New Zealand in the first place, for you to have better education, for you to have better school, for you to have, to do something better job and better opportunities. And then she said to me, son, I want you to not go to work tomorrow, but come with us to Housing New Zealand so that we can, this time they were looking for a transfer to a bigger house because all my siblings were starting to grow up and growing sideways. So, and then I didn't go to work the next day, but we went to Housing New Zealand for a transfer, for an appointment, for me to translate or for me to interpret, because my mom and dad were very little English at the time. So I thought my English was okay at the time. I don't know what happened to this woman that she came in and she saw me. She looked at the form. She realized that I didn't do the form properly. She said, who filled this form? I said, that's me. She said, how much English do you speak? I said, little English. She said, look, I'll tell you what to do. She gave us another form and she said, go with your parents, fill up another form, get someone that speaks better English, and come back, make another appointment. You know, it was that moment that also switched something in my head. And it was those moments as well that my mom looked at me. She said, son, the best person to work in an office like this, it's you. Stop your job, go learn English, go learn computer, and come and work in an office like this so that you can help people like us with no English. So I did. I stopped working for that factory job. I got myself a computer course during the day. I got myself an English course at nighttime. And I was doing that learning throughout the year. I was learning computers. I was learning English just to get myself up and running, just to learn something different. And I saw those moments. And those moments actually, you know, as my mom said, look, you can do it. You'll be the best person to work in an office like this to help people like us. A year later, I got myself an office job. Yes. And what had happened was I moved from that job to another job, moved from that job to another job, all because I kept on telling myself, I can do it. I can do it. Also with the help of my mom, she said, son, you can do it. You have to believe in yourself that you can do it. So I had so many jobs just because somewhere in that meeting with that woman, she told me to go, you know, that's when my mom said, go and learn English. Go and learn computers. And guess what? A few years later, I ended up in the same office working with the same woman that she told me to go and learn English. Very inspiring. I thought about it. I said, man, these challenges happen in our life because life believes there's something about you. And I really believe that. My mom said, see, I told you, son, you'll be the best person to go and learn English, learn how to work in an office, and come and work in an office like this to help people like us. And guess how many people I helped in that one job? I had so many other jobs. All I did was putting myself into positions to help people. And that's what I did. I had so many jobs just to put myself into a position to help many people. So if I look back in my life, I went through a lot of challenges in my life, tell you the truth. At the age 26, still in Wellington, I had a very serious stroke. A very serious one. Yes. I remember waking up and, you know, I remember coming home from work. I hopped off the bus and I had to drag myself. My whole right side of my body all gone, all numbed. I couldn't feel it. So I had to drag myself from the bus stop to home. When I got home, I opened the front door. I fell down on the ground. My whole family came and tried to, you know, and then when they turned me over, they said my whole face was crooked. My whole face was crooked. The last thing I remember, they called the ambulance. A few hours later, I woke up in that emergency room. My mom and dad and everyone surrounded my bedside, my hospital bed. And then I heard the two doctors talking to my mom and dad. And they said, Mr. and Mrs. Pepe, your son just had a very serious stroke. His brain is affected. And we believe that he's going to be paralyzed for a while, or even for the rest of his life. What do you do when you hear the doctor say that to your parents? What do you do when you hear the doctor say that right in front of you? I was just lying there in bed. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. I said to myself, man, I'm going to be here for the rest of my life. But here's where everything's changed. My mom saw me when I awoke. My mom saw me. She gave me a hug. She gave me a kiss on my cheek. And she said to me, son, you'll be the best person to go through this challenge, overcome this so that you can teach and tell your story so that you can help other people out there. See, here I was, hopeless, on a hospital bed, couldn't speak, couldn't move. And my mom said I was the best person to go through this so that I can overcome this and tell my story to help other people. The mother with a lot of determination, the mother of a lot of, you know, she said a lot of prayers, God, please, can you help my son? God, please. I know them. 4 or 5 weeks later, me and my mom walked out of the hospital. How did I do that? It's all because I kept on telling myself, I can do this. I kept on taking in what my mother was saying to me, son, you can do it. You've been through a lot, son, in your life, but these challenges, these challenges help us to grow. These challenges, if it wasn't these challenges I went through in my life, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing now. It was the problem that gave me the experience. It was the challenges that gave me the experience to become the person I am today, so that I can tell my story to help other people. I didn't understand why I had to go through all the business problems. My business went down a couple of times. I still get up and I'd start another business. These are small business. My house was taken away from me. I still get up and put a smile on my face. Health issues. I had a stroke, but I still get up and it's all because I believe there is something inside me. I believe there is something inside you. There's an inner conversation that happens all the time. What do you say to yourself every day? I believe where you are today because of what you've been telling yourself in the last few days or in the last few weeks or in the last few years. So that self-talk actually gives you some sort of energy to believe and to have that confidence in yourself. And then my mother passed away 19 years ago. My mother's name is Vienna. 10 years after she passed away, my parents both passed away, just 8 months apart. 10 years after they passed away, I went to Sydney for a business trip, me and my other colleague. As we were sitting inside that, there's a big room, 3,500 people in this big hall in Sydney. The last speaker on the second day, he blew me off my seat. He made me laugh. He made me cry. He's a motivational speaker. It was that moment I said to myself, I can do that. This is 2012. I can do that. I can get up in front of people and tell my story. I can do that. I want to do that. And then when he sat down, he only was up there for 20 minutes. When he sat down, another guy got up and closing, final remarks. That's when I closed my eyes. Talking to myself. That's when I said to myself, I can do that. I can do it. I'm going to become a public speaker. And then again, my mom passed away 10 years before that. But she whispered to me, it felt like it was yesterday, I could hear her voice saying to me, son, I told you, you have a gift. Then I took me back when I was young. I said, Mom, I got expelled from school because I talk too much. And my mom said, no, you don't. That's not a problem. You have a gift. I didn't understand then until many years later when I decided I'm going to become a public speaker. That's when I heard the voice in my ear saying, son, I told you, you have a gift. So when I returned back from that business trip, I Googled and I said, I wanted to become a public speaker. Toastmasters came up. After 6 months after I joined Toastmasters, what happened? I became an award-winning speaker in Toastmasters. 4 years in a row, all I did was competing in competitions and became a winner. Every time I get up on stage, I won competitions. So many competitions that I became the first Pacific Island motivational speaker in New Zealand to reach the highest level in New Zealand to be a professional speaker. All because I kept on telling myself, I can do it. I kept on hearing what my mom says, you can do it, son. You have a gift. I really believe you and I have a gift. I really believe you and I have, we here on this life to fulfill a purpose. And whatever that purpose is, we need to do something about it. Whatever that treasure is, we need to do something about it. Whatever that gift is, you need to do something about it. Where I am today, because of the many challenges that I went through in my life. If it wasn't those challenges, I wouldn't be able to learn the experience to where I am today. I really believe you and I were blessed, to come on this planet for a big purpose. And whatever that purpose is, get up and fulfill that purpose. Whatever your destiny is, get up and fulfill that. That's your big goal. That's your big purpose in life. So I really believe you and I were born to do something on this planet. As my mother said, son, talk to me. And the more I talked to my mother, the more I realized there is something that I can do in life. So even though my mom has gone ages ago, but still I hear her voice all the time. Thank you, Greg.
Oh, I have to say, I mean, I'm sitting here, and as you're describing that experience of where you're hearing your mum speaking to you inside that hall in Sydney, what a moment! What an absolute moment!
I had to close my eyes, Greg. I had to close my eyes and tell myself, okay, I'm going to do this. As I was telling myself, I'm going to become a public speaker. And then I heard that voice again. He said, son, see, I told you.
Stunning, absolutely stunning. It's interesting that, a really lovely story. A stroke. I mean, that's, I have to say, one of the challenges that we have when we go through life, right, is we have relationship challenges, we have mental challenges, we have financial challenges, and so forth. But I think one of the most challenging things that we have is health, because we always say, as long as we've got our health, we're okay. But that's got to be one of the most frightening things to go through, I imagine. Honestly, how did that feel? As you were talking about it, saying you have doctors around you telling you that you may not be able to move, you're going to be paralyzed. And at such a young age, it's kind of like, what? And I know your mum's there going, no, don't worry about it, son, you'll be fine. But what goes through your mind at those kind of points?
I think everything. And what I still remember is because my mom kept on telling me, people kept on coming in and telling me these stories. And then I realized, hey, I don't want to be here. I really don't want to be like this for the rest of my life. So the pictures that I kept on telling myself, I kept on talking to myself. I was playing all the sports, tell you the truth. A lot of sports. I was playing rugby, basketball, volleyball, you name it. I was out there running every day. And then when I ended up in the hospital, I couldn't believe it. That's when I realized maybe, my mom said, look, sometimes you have to go through the challenges in order for you to become the person that you want to become later on in your life. And that's when I realized the reason why I had to go through all these problems, because someone has to tell a story, And so at that particular moment, I really didn't see myself lying on that bed for the rest of my life. No, I kept on having those flash moments, keep on coming in, see myself going back to work, see myself playing rugby again, see myself go out with my friends. And that's all I see, is trying to feed myself those pictures of what I want to achieve tomorrow, where I want to see myself in, So when a few weeks later, when I walked out of the hospital, the doctors couldn't believe it. And they were asking me questions. How did you do that? What did you do? We only giving you the pain. We only giving you the painkillers. But what? Yeah, it's a miracle. It's a miracle.
So in that process, did you find yourself, was it incremental? Like each day, did you find yourself getting stronger and better? Or was there a really swift change?
Yeah, I think in the first few days, I didn't really see myself in that moment. I think I was still going through the process. But I think the more I think about it, the more positively, I have to feed myself positive thinking all the time. And the more my mom talks to me, that's when I realize, hey, I've got to do this. So maybe after a few days, that's when I realized I've got to do this. No one will get me out of here but myself. So then slowly from there, that's when I realized, man, it's working. It's working. So the more I talk to myself, the more I listen to my mom, that's when I realized, hey, it's working. It's working very slowly.
So that's an aspect of mindset. And this, look, I had the great pleasure of doing a series with Professor Carol Dweck. And Carol Dweck came up with the concept of, well, not necessarily came up with it, but certainly explored it in great depth, the concept of fixed or growth mindsets. Right. And so the elements of, for those who have a fixed mindset, we believe that, or people believe that talent is set, that you already have a certain amount of talent and nothing that you will do necessarily will get it any better. And you're either talented or you're not. And as a consequence, you don't tend to strive for things. Whether a growth mindset is that, talent can be grown over time, and that failure is a really good thing because it means that you're able to get better and not fear it, but, grow with it. In your experience, what do you see as the majority out there in terms of how people think?
Yep. I think it's all got to do with our environment. It's all got to do with your environment. People tend to look at their environment and then they feedback what they see in their environment into them. And again, it's a mindset. What I normally do is I look beyond my environment, whether I have friends and whether I mix and mingle with the people that they don't have the same goals with as me, but I still see myself beyond that environment. So we really need to think greater than our environment, if that makes sense. We really need to do, yes. I mean, if we can't see it in ourselves, then you can't see it out there. So
that's challenging though. I mean, if you're thinking about, in a perfect world, we can go, oh, great. I don't have any of these problems. I've got money. I've got shelter. I've got food. Everything's great. I can think outside of my environment, but it's not that simple for a lot of people. So how can we find ways to change our mindset when we're not necessarily even having our base level needs looked after? And that's been a challenge over this year, particularly as we know that a lot of people have lost work, that the challenges of having to work from home, social relationships have changed drastically, in terms of how we integrate with families. I was traveling a lot. I'd be away 3 or 4 days a week.
Yep.
I might be away 12 days at a stretch, doing my overseas speaking roles. And of course, my family gets used to this. And my wife and I, our relationship is set in a certain way, which is I'm away a lot. And now I've been home a lot. And that was quite hard to work for all of us. So what's your thoughts about these kind of challenges that we have?
Well, when it comes to mindset, I think everything comes down to a personal level. It depends. I come across people that they want to change, but they still holding on to what they believe it's for them to change. You cannot change if you're still holding on to your past. In order for us to change, you got to leave the past behind us. In order for us to change, you got to become a new person. Does that make sense? So we will never be able to get to where we want in life if everything's got to do with our mind. If the thoughts actually help you to become successful in whatever that you do, and that's what you do. And if the thoughts also giving you the feedback that you're not measuring, you don't have what it takes, you don't have the qualifications, So it's the mindset that we need to look at. And it's very hard to try to change someone's mindset, which they never had that sort of education before. You have to have a platform of what it is that you want to learn about yourself. It's very hard to try to teach someone that doesn't even know anything about him or herself. So it's a mindset that we need to work on.
Yeah, so that's the element of intrinsic or extrinsic motivation, right? So, if you like, and it depends on age groups too. I think one of the things that we've seen is that the boomer age group, okay, so our parents' generation,
Baby boomers.
And that particular generation really doesn't like being externally motivated. They don't want people to come to them and say, hey, you can do better. There's been some studies done on this where they've taken these groups and they've had personal trainers work with them while they're doing physical exercises on gym equipment and so forth. And they've done these various different generations. And that particular generation really doesn't want that. They don't, it's all here. They were taught a mindset, or there was a lot more resilience because of the adversity, I think, that they probably went through at the time. And then we've got my generation, which is the Generation X, our generation, I should say. And then we have the Gen Ys, millennials, and now the now the Gen, I want everything, but I don't want to work for it. That's a generalization. Humans don't change that much. But what we found is that as the generations have moved on, that each generation subsequently requires more and more external motivation as opposed to internal motivation. And also it was Michael Hempseed, one of our speakers at Professional Speakers Association New Zealand, also was talking about it, saying about the element of resilience, and that in our younger members of our society, that resilience has dropped drastically. I think it's been like 50% in a very short space of time. And that's hard. The people fear failure. They don't want to fail. And that's an integral part of growth. So what is your observations? What have you seen in our communities? And what's your thoughts about how we can create a better sense of resilience, particularly in our youth?
Yes, and that's probably why I'm doing what I'm doing, because of how I saw within my own community that the young people are struggling, the parents are struggling in terms of lifestyle, in terms of, mindset. I think that's probably why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I like helping people. I think that the biggest problem is lifestyle. Lifestyle. I can talk about so many people that I know of in my own little group that the lifestyle needs to change. So whenever I talk to them, hey, we need to do this and this and that, and then they will, again, it's very hard for these people try to, it's almost like they can't put away what they've been used to. That makes sense. The lifestyle that they've been used to, now it's programmed into my note. I can only do this. I don't think I can change. I don't think I can do this. Because we're so comfortable in this little area. And this is what the other day I was talking to someone that's been working for the job for 30 years. And now he's having problem finding another job because he's been working for that one job for 30 years. When the COVID-19 happens, he couldn't see himself outside of that job. And that's the problem, because we are very comfortable in what we do. So in order for us to learn more, in order for us to get out of that zone, we have to change the way we do things. But the mindset is, I think, it comes down to individuals, to your personal choice.
Yeah, it certainly does. But it's an interesting aspect of us as humans is that our social groups really do have quite a massive impact on who we are and our sort of the community. There's a speaker by the name of Jim Rohn who talks about us being the sum total of the 5 people we surround ourselves with. That's and correct. Of course, so the key would be if 4 of your closest friends are CEOs of companies, it's quite likely that you might be a CEO or you have those kind of traits. But by the same token, if your 5 members of the 5 people that you surround with yourself are in and out of jail or involved in crime, it's quite likely that you'll probably be in the same boat. So how do we break? And this is actually a really interesting question for our ethnic and migrant communities. Now, for myself as an English immigrant, when we came to this country, we had very little family, and we ended up in a small farming community in Mangatawhiri. 400 people lived in this community. We were very broad Yorkshire speakers, so we were quite isolated in this space. But what often happens from immigrant communities is that people come to a country and we want to be with people who are like us. And so we tend to gravitate to those communities and become quite insular. And as a consequence, there's not a lot of ability to break away from that or to change to integrate, not to lose our culture, but to actually, integrate into those cultures. What's your experience in this? What have you seen, and what's some of the challenges there?
Yeah, I think it's not a problem getting into your own cultural group. I think that's the best way to build up your, to hold on to that part of the culture. But I think the challenge is trying to get the cultural group or that group into something a little bit better. I really believe to become better in your culture is to make things better, not to hold, not the same principle, but to make that principle better according to where you are now. The things that we used to do 100 years ago, I don't think I can do those according to, because these are the cultural perspective. So I think it's important, even though that you have that group, but it's still important to learn what is that you need for this particular era. I mean, for this particular life, where we are right now, so the education is very important and that's what I try to do with, if you go out with our community in the Pacific Island community, there's a group here, there's a group there, but there are also educational groups that comes in and teach and train people to be better. And that's what we need to do, which is a challenge in many areas. But I think that's very important that we still have to bring these people, and we still have to encourage these people to come out to this learning, to go out and learn more and to do this education. It's a challenge, but it's a good challenge.
Is it a continuing challenge in terms of the financial requirement for that as well?
It is a financial requirement as well. I think that's a big issue in a Pacific Island community, because people don't. I can talk about myself. I never learned how to budget money. I had to find it myself.
Snap, me too.
I had to find it myself. Now I can't go back and blame my parents for it. No, but now I can see there's tools everywhere. There's learning everywhere. So I have no excuse but to learn. How to budget. Now I can teach my kids how to budget.
I think that's one of the biggest thing for me as well was the lack of financial education that we had as kids. And one of the things that I would often see is, because my parents were always self-employed. Yep. So when we immigrated here, my father was indentured to a company for 2 years. And we were very fortunate because we came out, it only cost us £20 to fly from England to New Zealand, and that was basically £10 each for my mum and dad, and the kids came free as a package deal. And he was indentured for 2 years with the company as a painter and decorator, and at the end of that 2 years he quit that company and never worked for anyone ever again. Wow. He only worked for himself. And both my mum and dad were very entrepreneurial. So they would have, he had a business where he was doing painting and decorating and carpentry and so forth. And then he started making reproduction wooden furniture. He built himself a workshop, and we were selling that quite at high-end shops. And we used to go around the craft fairs. So he would make little toys, wooden toys. And I remember vividly as a kid going to all these little, craft fairs on every Saturday and Sunday, it seemed, and every single holiday. There was never a holiday. It was always we're out working. Yes. And as kids, we would be out on Queen Street in Auckland with these wooden whipping tops. And the top itself is just a little string around it. You put it on the ground and you pull it away. But, generally in New Zealand, the tops were that. You just gave it one pull with a string and it would just spin down. But the English top is got a stick with a string on it. And the top spins and you whip it, and it just keeps going round, 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 round. You just keep going. So my father used to send me and my brother down the street about 100 meters down the street, and we'd be playing with these whipping tops on the side of the road, and all the kids would come up with their parents as they were walking up the street, and they'd go, "Oh, they're cool. Where'd you get those?" And we go, "Oh, there's an old man up the street selling them." And they'd go up there and they'd buy them. They were $1 each, which was in the late 1970s, early 80s, was quite a lot of money. $1, to buy. But even that, watching their entrepreneurial spirit was one thing, and that's something that I've grabbed.
Yeah.
We didn't know anything about the finances. We weren't given any information about how it does. We know that top costs $1. I don't know how much it costs to make. I don't know what the break-even point was on it. I don't know how many hours they had to work to make those products. or how much tax that they had to pay on it. What was the procedure for that? But I used to watch my mum on a Sunday evening, and she would sit at the table and she would do this thing, and it was called doing the books. And I had no idea what doing the books meant, but it involved calculators and pens and pencils and bits and pieces. But we didn't have an education. We didn't, you say that we can't go back to and blame our parents, because it's not only counterproductive, but it's unfair. But what I've taken that experience for is to go and teach my children the basics of how you run a finance. And right from early days, we're talking about commerce. And if we're going to run a business, then the things we buy and sell, we've got to buy them for less than we sell. And the sale price has to cover all of the overheads, and it has to have a profit. We've got to look, all basic business stuff, but it's an education that I didn't have. And I'm certainly hopeful that my kids will have an opportunity from that.
Well, I'm still learning. As I said, I lost a couple of small business before, but it's all part of learning. You fail, you learn, you get up and create something else. I think we live in a life where, learning comes from all over the place. We got everything on the internet, online. So there's no excuse. There's no excuse.
That's true. Hey, we've got a question coming here from Danny Rios, who was on last week. The week before last. She says this: how did you, Ami, manage to recover physically from the stroke? And how could you keep mentally strong to work through the challenges? Your mother was a great influence. How did you internalize that strength to help you through?
Oh, man. I'll tell you what, I only talked about my stroke, but I had many heart attacks.
Are you okay right now? Are you okay?
In the last 4 years, every time I ended up in an emergency, the doctor said to me, Ami, one more heart attack, you'll be gone. I said to my wife, I can't wait for that last one. I had many heart attacks, and last year I had a big operation. 4 of my arteries, they created 4 new arteries here. How did I overcome the stroke? It's a mindset. It's a mindset. I really believe that you have to tell yourself, you have to put the picture of what it is that you want in your mind. If you keep on worrying and stress about your health conditions, and guess what? It will get worse. It will get worse. And I think it comes down to what sort of life that you grew up with. As I mentioned, my mother always there. My mother always encouraged me. So that bond between me and my mother created some sort of confidence and some sort of image in myself that I can actually see myself getting out of this stroke. Getting out of the hospital. That's what I keep on telling myself. I keep on feeding myself those pictures, those ideas. I keep on telling myself, I'm going to get out of here. My mom is right. I'm going to get out. So the more I talk to myself, the more those pictures form in my head, in my brain, and in my mind to believe that I will get out. And guess what? I was out. A few weeks later, it's all got to do with here. If we believe that our mind, our thoughts, and the things the picture that we put in here, there has something got to do with our life. And then we need to work with the brain. We need to work with the mind. That's all it is. I didn't really, the doctors were helping me doing little, exercise slowly, just to get myself from that stroke. But that's all it is. But the more I worked with my mind, the more I realized I was getting better and better every day.
So it's definitely that level of visualization, right?
Exactly.
So that's something very, very important from a sport perspective, right? So that's Olympic athletes will do this. And I think Daley Thompson, decathlete in the UK, who was phenomenal in so many Commonwealth Games and Olympics, he would visualize well before he even started training. So he had an image of himself, full size made, and he put it on his wall. And he would stand in front of that image, looking at himself, seeing himself on a podium with medals.
Exactly.
And continuously going, that's who I am. That's where I'm going to be. Because it's not so much about going, oh, I'm not good enough. How can I be better?
No.
It's going, this is who I am, this is who I'm going to be, and this is how I'm going to get there. Danny says, you're such an inspiration, Ami.
Visualization is very important. Again, it's those pictures. When a few years ago, when I decided to write a book, I never wrote a book before, you know. And when I decided to write a book, all I did was got the information in. I write things down, and I kept on looking. All of a sudden, it's formed in my head, and then I could see then I started to see myself having that book, and then a few years later, I wrote a book. Visualization is you got to put those pictures. You got to feed those pictures into your brain, into your mind, to believe that you can do it, and then get up and do it.
Well, Ami, I got to say, this has been a really inspirational talk. I love the sense of you. You have this a gentle insistence that works really well. You know, that really makes us want to go, oh, you know what, we probably can be better. I can be better at this. Whatever it might be. I'm really interested though. Do you have any tips? We're coming towards the end of the session, but do you have any tips really for our audience in terms of the challenges that COVID has placed on our people? As you talk about, you know, your business took a real big hit this year, which is a big challenge for anyone. But when we've set up these webinars, we asked people, you know, what are your challenges of COVID? What have you seen? What it's been? Some of them have been around relationships. You know, the difference coming to work from home. Some have been tragic in the aspect of, you know, family members have passed away while they've been in the lockdown period. We're unable to be there for family or to grieve. The financial implications of when businesses go down. You know, how do we maintain that? So do you have any thoughts about advice for our audience, perhaps even from your personal experience or from your work in terms of mindset?
Yeah, I think these things happened. These things that we cannot control what these things when it happened. We can only control ourselves. So instead of looking at the problem that we have, we need to look at what opportunities that comes up now. Yes, there is a problem here, but every single problem that we faced in life, it comes with so many opportunities. So we cannot control what had happened, but we can only control how we feel and how we see the problem. Where can we go from here? Okay, this is the problem, but these are the opportunities that we're going to face. Maybe the COVID-19 is one problem, but the many opportunities that comes with that problem, that one problem, that's what we need to do. We need to focus on the opportunities instead of talking so much the more you talk about the problem, the more you see problems. So instead of talking about the problem, let's have a look at the opportunities. What can we do from now on? Where can we go from here? What opportunities that we have? What doors is open so far? Where can we go from here? I think that's one thing that I can think for myself. As I said, we were going to look at the warehouse this year, to move into a warehouse, you know, get away from home and move into a warehouse. But when this happened, now we have to look for another opportunity. Now we've been talking about opportunities instead of keep on looking at the problem, if that makes sense.
Yes, that makes absolutely perfect sense. And that's that process of I can control my reaction. I can't control the circumstances, but correct. I can certainly control the reaction that I have to those circumstances. I think that speaks to it very much so. It can be a very challenging thing, right? I was on the weekend. I had the great pleasure of listening to a speaker in the UK by the name of Nigel Risner, and he is straight to the point. I think he's got a great way of thinking. But one of those things, and it's something that I have been using in my own life and business for well more than 20 years. He has this element of a can't, won't strategy. So that whole process of people come up and they go, I can't do it.
Yes.
You know, it's tough, it's too hard, I can't do it. And I use this with my kids and they really don't like it when I tell them it. When I say, it's not that you can't do it, you won't do it. Because
That's
won't makes a choice. The moment you say, I won't do it, you're actually making a choice about it, right? Whereas when you say, I can't do it, what you're saying is all the external forces are stopping me from doing it. It's not my fault. It's everything outside of me that's causing me the problem. Have you used that strategy for yourself?
It does. It does. I think as I said, if we focus on what our environment has given us, and then we give our will to the environment, if you know what I mean, if we focus on what we want to achieve, and then that remote control is coming back to us. A lot of times we make decisions because of the external environment. So it's very important that we have to be aware of what's going on in here. That's what's happening out there. So we really need to hold on to that. And to believe in yourself that, no, it's my will. This is what I want to do. And instead of, listening to what other people and what other things actually taken away from us.
Oh, you make very good sense, Ami, I have to say. That's really cool. So Danny says, have you read about neurosciences? Brain science talks about what you were just talking about there scientifically, but you have the lived experience. So congrats. And Danny also says, I needed to hear that. I help others through visualizations, but it's time to visualize more myself. And so true, Danny, that's actually really true. And Ami, it's really true as well, is that we often find ourselves in a position of helping others because that's who we are. That's what we want to do, right? We want to help other people. And we might be tasked to do it. It might be part of our job. It might be what we do. But it's very simple and easy to forget that we are as important and that we need to focus on our own health and our wellness and our own resilience and the way that we walk through the world. Do you have any tips on not getting lost in helping others rather than helping ourselves?
Yes. I think I'm talking about my own community. I spoke the other day, a couple of years ago in my little community, and I said, look, and people looked at me, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? Why do you want to be different from everyone? You know what I mean? I said, look, I will go away and learn so that I can come back and help you. If that makes sense. So someone has to do it. Someone has to do it, but also it's very important that we have to look after ourselves too. And my wife kept on telling me, hey, you got to slow down. You only one you. You only have one heart. So you got to slow down. Yes, it's very important that we have to look after ourselves because we won't be able, I won't be able to do what I'm doing now if I don't have to look after myself. So my health is very important. The number one asset in life is your health. So it's very important that we have to look after our body. We have to look after our mind so that we can do what we want to do in life. If we spend too much time out there doing other things, but not looking after yourself, that means you're not helping other people, but you're not helping yourself too. Because it's very important that your health is the number one asset in your life.
You have hit the nail right on the head, I have to say, Ami, and it's been an absolute pleasure having you here. Now, if people want to know more about you and the work that you do, how can we contact you? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Oh, yes, it's on my website, amipepe.com.
Brilliant stuff. So fantastic. I really appreciate you taking the time to be here as well. Danny says it's all very true what you just said. Hope you take care, Ami, so you can keep helping others, which is a wonderful, wonderful thing. Really appreciate you taking time to be here, as I've said, and look forward to further conversations. I really would love to explore further some of the concepts. Thank you very much for this
opportunity and also the opportunity that I have to share our stories online. Thank you very much for it. Hope to see you again.
Cool. Tō whāsau fua.
Okay, tō whāsau fua.
See you. Well, guest speaker Ami Pepe joining us here, and a fabulous conversation all the way around. And this is really what this is all about. Brought to you by the Waitakere Ethnic Board and supported for us by Foundation North and the Aotearoa Academy. Just wonderful stuff. And certainly hope that you're taking heart from this, or if you're watching this on the recording, that you're taking some of these nuggets of information and being able to use them in your own experiences. Well, we have coming up at the next of our sessions, we are going to be talking with Steffi August, and now she's an incredibly interesting individual. She's joining us after immigrating here from East Germany. Now, I don't know if you know a great deal about East Germany, but it was a pretty austere and dire kind of place. And I'm looking forward very much indeed to having a very nice chat with Steffi in the appropriate moment and time. Massive thank you indeed for joining with us here for this, the fifth in our series of Moments That Matter with the Waitakere Ethnic Board. Thank you so much. My name is Greg Ward, and it's been my pleasure to come and join with you here as we've been exploring more about mindset and the way that we're rolling on through the world. We'll catch you next week with our speaker, Steffi August, and that is at on Wednesday, the 9th of December at 10 a.m. So thank you so much indeed. We will see you then.